Kids think vaping is cool. Vaping is the new norm. Vaping is awesome. If you don't vape, you're weird.
Just makes you look like the tough guy, I guess.
Breathing like a dragon.
Exactly.
Constantly, there's kids in the bathrooms, so it's hard to go and use the bathrooms in class.
When it comes to vaping, most kids just do it because they want something to feel like they're like everybody else.
Now we're seeing it cross lines where it's, everywhere from athletes to kids in the auto shop, and basically it's getting through all groups now, so.
Vaping is a way for people to get their nicotine fix, essentially. It uses a solution that contains nicotine and other flavorings and other chemicals, and then it heats it up to high temperatures and you inhale it, and that's how you absorb the nicotine into your system.
I don't know what's in any of the vaping products.
I don't think they care about what's in it. I think it's the feeling that they get from it.
I don't think that kids think that vaping is the same as cigarettes. I think they think it's safer.
A lot of people think that e-cigarettes produce a water vapor, and in truth, they actually produce an aerosol. And this aerosol contains a lot of chemicals, including benzene, formaldehyde, cadmium, things that we know cause cancer, birth defects, and other health problems.
The way they package it makes it look cool to kids.
They make the devices in really strategic ways. I mean, there's a product called Juul. It's like a flash drive. And kids love sneaking these things into class and using them and hiding them, and teachers are kind of none the wiser. It's really crazy.
I know some people who have had like a cast from breaking their wrist and they've put a device inside of it.
Or they'll take their Juul and put in the water bottle tip, like the little tip that flips up. They use that.
They produce these products in all kinds of flavors that are really enticing to kids. They have cherry and bubblegum, cereal flavors.
First they start out with juice that is just flavored, and then all of a sudden somebody puts some nicotine juice in there, and then we've even heard that they mix the marijuana liquid with the vape liquid, so you can't really tell what it is.
It oftentimes can lead to dual use, where kids are using both nicotine and marijuana, and we absolutely don't want to see that.
I would say 90% of my friends smoke. It's just, you want to hang out? Cool, where are we smoking?
I think parents should know that it's really easy to get vape or marijuana and that everybody does it.
So many people do it that it's just like the normal now.
I know some of my friends smoke to get away from life. They smoke to not feel pain and resentment with their family. If you're going through something at home or in school, it's so much easier to just let it all go and feel nothing.
Dealing with an addiction is one of the hardest things that I've ever dealt with. My name is Isaiah Markham, and I'm 20. So I first tried vaping because of the flavors, and it was kind of just like moving on with my nicotine habit, finding another way to do it without it like tasting as bad or like being as gross. And it was definitely a lot easier to hide than a pack of cigarettes. So the first time I tried weed was my freshman year too as well. They had vape pen ones too, and so that kind of like incorporated two things that I already did together.
The first signs of Isaiah going down this path of addiction was, first he'd get really agitated, really easy. Then the grades started to slip. And then he was starting to ditch classes. And then once his GPA got to a certain level, he was kicked out of sports, which was really, really damaging to him. And I realized there was a bigger problem. And of course, we discovered he was smoking weed at that time.
Like I played baseball for 9 years and I was good. Sophomore year was the last year that I played because I started smoking a lot. My grades started going down. I lost my motivation, and so I didn't want to be in class. I didn't want to be at school.
You know, I just kept thinking, not Isaiah. Isaiah's not going to get caught up in all of this.
And then senior year, I just got really bad. I started smoking all the time. Smoked like every day senior year.
When we realized we had an addiction issue with marijuana, I really was proactive, and I left no stone unturned. Chased down the schools, drug testing him regularly, taking away preferred items, having to call the police when he went into rages.
So at my peak, probably about every 15 minutes I would get up and I would smoke. I was like out of my mind stone through most of the day, and so I couldn't function. Like I couldn't do anything. I just sat at home all day. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't have any motivation.
I was the mom of the star pitcher, and then all of a sudden I saw my child and I was fearful that he was gonna die. No one ever saw it coming, not my kid.
And I ended up in the hospital actually with pneumonia, which was caused from like vaping and smoking weed, because all of the fluid and just smoke going into my lungs. I missed years of my little brother and sister's life, and that's A, something I'll never forgive myself for, and B, something I'm gonna have to spend the rest of my life trying to make up.
Now that Isaiah is not smoking marijuana, I feel like I have my son back. I'm seeing his personality again, his motivation, his drive to want to do things in life and have a future. I don't go to bed every night praying he doesn't die.
Many youth don't think marijuana is dangerous for their health. There's really been a drop in the perception of harm. However, the irony is it's actually much riskier today because it has become so potent.
Hippies smoked weed in the 60s, and they were getting high on THC levels of 2 to 3%. But right now, the average marijuana in California, the average has 25% THC.
We're worried about these high levels of THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, because that is the chemical in marijuana that makes a person high.
I think that parents are probably not as familiar with the marijuana products that are available today. The marijuana is so highly potent, and then there's the condensed versions, the oils, the honey oils, and then the edibles, which are extremely potent.
We are seeing young people who are addicted to marijuana, where in the past it wasn't an addictive substance because it was not as strong as it is today.
The brain is not fully developed until the age of 25. So when we're thinking about a teenager, that brain is still very vulnerable to the effects of chemicals.
The health risks are a lot greater for somebody under the age of 25, so the longer they can delay in trying these products, the less risk that they're going to be addicted or have serious problems from using them.
We're seeing kids use marijuana younger and younger. More teens are presenting for issues at the emergency department just from marijuana use. Some of those things are vomiting that can't stop, and even episodes of psychoses.
The danger of children learning how to cope with stress or frustration using chemicals is they develop a chemical coping strategy, and that habit, as it continues into adulthood, becomes extremely hard to break.
Parents can feel overwhelmed when they learn all this information, but there are actually a lot of things that they can do in order to support their teens. One of the most important is to really try to keep the lines of communication open, trying to find ways where they can talk about vaping and using marijuana. Do they have friends who are doing it? What do they think about it? Make sure they're clear on what the health risks are.
You have to have that relationship, at least in some way, from the beginning. Because if suddenly it's like, okay, let's go have a moment, let's go have a conversation, kids are gonna be like, what is going on?
It's also really important to have clear family rules around substance use. It doesn't matter what other families are doing. What's important is what you decide in your home is okay and not okay, and what the consequences are. It can be fun to role play together. Maybe you're at a party and somebody's offering you something. How would you handle it? What would you say? If they think some of these things through ahead of time, they're much more likely to make a decision that they feel good about than if they're making decisions in the spur of the moment. Teens today, just across the board, are dealing with a lot of stress, more so than in the past.
And then they're turning to things like vaping and marijuana just as a coping skill. It's easier to tune that out and not deal with it at all. And then those are the students that we see really struggling in the long term.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we introduce positive coping strategies for our youth. I believe that as humans, the more healthy coping strategies we have, it just naturally, weeds out or pushes out the less healthy coping strategies.
It's also really helpful to talk to your sons and daughters about what their long-term goals are. Do they want to go to college? Do they want to play sports? And how making certain choices might get in the way of those goals.
When parents have this situation come up with their child experimenting, going to a place of fear and judgment usually turns the kids off and has them disconnect from us even more.
I think it's really important as the parent to remain calm as much as we can and just really listen to our child.
The goal should be to keep the conversation going with the objective being, okay, so if you're going to find yourselves in these situations, how is it that you can be safe?
So when we have our first conversation with a child about that, coming from a place of non-judgment and knowing we're going to listen and ask questions, that's going to be a real good starting place as opposed to coming from fear and anger.
It's a scary situation, so there's a lot of support out there. You can get it immediately. You can walk into any sort of treatment facility and ask for that support, and you shouldn't be afraid to get the help that you need in order to support your student.
And I think it's really important to not underestimate the influence parents have on their teen lives, to work on keeping those lines of communication open, to stay connected, and to see the relationship really as a partnership so that you're working together around issues of vaping and marijuana and not in opposition.